Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. I am here with Peter Marchetti. Peter is our City Council President and at-large Councilor. Peter, thank you for taking the time tonight to do this.
Thank you for inviting me.
Most people do know who you are, but for those who don't, if you just want to introduce yourself and your role as a City Councilor in Pittsfield.
Sure, thanks, Mike. So I'm Pete Marchetti. I am running for my 8th term on the City Council, and I have been the City Council President for the last 6 years. And I'm the guy behind the scenes on a whole host of stuff we've talked about before. One that caught you off guard, that I've coached youth bowling for 30 years, so a side of me that people don't see. I'm probably best known for the guy who leads the 4th of July parade. I've served on a number of boards and commissions over the years, and so I think all of that package, right? I think as people, you can't just point to one piece, and I think my entire package of who I am and my experiences is what makes me a great choice to be reelected.
Okay, and coming out of this crazy year we had, are you finally this cycle, are you able to get back out and do some door knocking and be able to talk to some of your constituents in person?
So I've been out. I'm not necessarily knocking on doors because I don't want to create a situation where I'm making someone uncomfortable. But like I was out on Monday, and there were a number of people doing yard work or various different things, and I'm engaging in conversations. And you know, I'm always energized by being able to go out to the general public. It gives you kind of an idea of where you stand. I've done some elections where I've gone up and they're like, I know who you are, get lost. That always makes you feel warm and fuzzy and really great about things. But, you know, you hear from folks and they're like, well, why are you doing this? You know, you're going to win. And, you know, I get uncomfortable because you may think that's the case, but if all you people think that way and you don't go out and vote, then maybe potentially not. And so, you know, I think I'm trying to get folks to take this seriously and really like pay attention to the candidates, not just in the at-large race, but, you know, I think we have 4 ward races that are important, and probably the most important race that we have is that a school committee. You know, we started out with 10 candidates. We're now down to 8, but those 6 people that get elected make a lot of important decisions about how our school operates, and they, you know, have a large chunk of the city budget that they spend. And so I think it's important for people to pay attention, get involved, ask the right questions, and keep it, you know, in my opinion, keep it on a professional level. We can disagree on the issues, but we can still be friends and grab a cup of coffee.
Now, while you're out there this year, are you hearing any particular issues or things that are different issues from other campaigns or things that are on the forefront of the voters?
So I think first and foremost, I'm hearing about North Street and the bike lanes and, you know, where we're at. And, you know, for me, it's trying to take in everything that I'm hearing, and then to also, you know, kind of reiterate the fact that this is a what I would say trial run at what North Street could look like, and, you know, leave with, I think everyone could agree or understand that, you know, the basis of this kind of decision was to make downtown a destination. Is it working that way? Maybe not, but I think we all could recognize that that was kind of the intent. We wanted to make it more pedestrian friendly. We wanted to, and, you know, I think some will make the argument that it's achieved its goal. I think a good majority will make the argument that it hasn't. But again, is what we had the right option, right? Or was it the status quo? And so, you know, you hear return it to what it was because it was working. Well, was it really, right? Or is there something else that could be done? You know, years ago, I kind of threw out the idea of some form of pedestrian mall in downtown Pittsfield, kind of like they do in Boston, and just have, that area of walkability, shops, or whatever the case may be. I mean, I think that's a pretty cool thought process for a downtown. Could we get there? Do we have adequate parking? Do we, I mean, my sense is that we all have come to the age where I'm going to store A, and if I have to park in front of store B and walk back to store A, that's inconvenient. I don't want to do it. And so, is that the right piece? I think I'm hearing a lot about trash, and probably more so than some other folks, since I was the one who, led a petition and continued to speak about it. And, from my perspective, it's like, okay, well, stop. Like, let's dissect where we're at. This isn't just about pay as you throw. Before the city council that's tabled that had been through O&R, there's a proposal to limit the amount of trash that's thrown out to 64 gallons. And so the question happens that what happens to residents that throw out more than 64 gallons? They can't. Does it stay in their backyard? Do they throw it in the park? Do they do? So I think if we're willing to get to a point where we want to cap how much can be thrown out, can we come up with compromises to say, what do we do after that, right? And so, when we put forth the pay-as-you-throw conversation, yes, we said you can have X number of bags at cost. Well, that you got to have a starting point. And so, my thought process is let's engage in the conversation. Have someone say, no, you said you were going to charge those first 104 bags that costed about $0.25 a piece. Forget it. We're going to give those first 104 bags for free. And so now what's the difference between capping something at 64 or giving away bags free to get to 64, and then say, okay, after that 64, if you want to throw out more than 64 gallons of trash, maybe you need to buy a bag. Or maybe it's, geez, toters weren't that bad. We got up to a bad start. Maybe it's a 64-gallon toter for everybody. And then if you throw out more than 64, you have a bag. I don't know what the answer is, but to charter bomb or to table and not engage in the conversation, I mean, I think we recognize as a community, we can see the trends that our solid waste disposal continues to rise. And so what do we do to get us in a place where we're looking for solutions? And I don't care what that solution is, right? I'm willing to debate that solution. Maybe it's 75 gallons of trash free. I don't know. But I think it's time for us to engage in that conversation and find a solution that works for a majority, right? And also can save us money. And when we put forth pay as you throw, there was a cost to it, but there was a savings to it. And so if we give back some of that savings, because we're going to give away things for free, so there's a little bit less revenue, even if you could create a program that capped at 64 and then gave you an option for others, and so the cost is going to rise, but it's not going to rise exponentially, because it's now what's the cost per ton to dispose. But if you're making $100,000 a year through the excess bags that you're throwing to kind of level the playing field in some sense, where does $100,000 go to? So what other needs do we have that we can, not necessarily take that income, but if we can reduce the cost, we can put the funds someplace else to start tackling another problem.
Absolutely. And I know trash has been an ongoing for years. And I do think we need to really focus also, personally, I think, on recycling. That's something we really need to get people more engaged with for a lot of different reasons. But it's, there were, prior to the weird year that started, there were a lot of things on the table that they all just had to be put on the back burner. Do you see a lot of older issues coming up at the same time with a lot of new issues? Like, I know we're going to be discussing new police station, which is needed.
Absolutely.
Enrollment in our schools. There's something needs to be done there. So there's a lot of big issues. And I compare it to, I was saying this to someone under Mayor Fallon's term, as he's our longest serving mayor. And that was when FDR had all this government money, and we saw new buildings going up everywhere that we're still, I think the impact of this council will be similar to that one. The decisions you'll be making will be 50 to 100-year projects that the city will need. Do you see older issues coming back on top of all the new ones also?
Yeah, I think we'll see a combination of, I think for me, and I love the phrase "the crazy times" because I think that kind of spells it out. And so to a certain extent, I continue to look at myself and say, who would have thunk, right? Who would have thunk it? That all of a sudden in like the first 2 weeks of March, the world was going to stop. And there were calls at that point in time that city council meetings should be put on hold until further notice. Well, as we know, based on the crazy times, city council was on hold for a very long time, right? And would that have accomplished anything? So I think that the fact that we were able to miss a meeting, hop onto Zoom and continue doing, and I think if any of the 11 of us that sat there told you that the last 18 months was easy, I'd call them a liar straight out, because I know from running the meeting's sake, they were much harder. You also hear the arguments of, geez, because you were meeting virtually, you took the public's voice away. And I'm continuing to work on a project because I'm going to put the facts out, but let's talk about how many people spoke at open mic in the year 2017, 18, 19. And now let's talk about how many people spoke at open mic in 2020, 2021. And I think we're going to be able to see in record numbers, and part of it because of maybe 3 major issues. During budget season, there was a lot of conversation about policing and what policing should look like. So there was a good number of people at all of those budget hearings to be talking about those issues. Education made it to public mic and conversations, and then the cell tower made it very much so to the forefront. And I think that virtual meetings gave much more focus on how to connect. And so we were listening to people at meetings from California and Canada and a variety of other places. And so if we were meeting in person, we would have had that flair. And so going forward, how do we create an ability for local residents? I don't want to make it available to the world, but local residents and maybe even as far as Berkshire County residents have access to us in a way that is convenient for them, right?
So there's a way to possibly do that, to be able to have the in-person meetings, but still have that digital platform where people can connect that way on top of it, or is, I know that was challenging for you.
It was challenging for me, but I think if it was legal, right? So first we need to make sure that the state legislature makes it legal. I think the other piece of it is that when everything hit, the way that we did a meeting changed, and I was told, you have to do the roll calls, you have to do this, you have to do that. And that was the kind of the information that I was provided. And throughout the entire time that we were meeting virtually, I ran the meeting. And, after a couple really clusters, I worked with Pete White and said, okay, we need to find a way to make this open mic piece work. And I think we got to it, right? One person running the meeting, one person running a portion of the meeting. And so if we had the opportunity to do that, does it need to be that way for the entire meeting? Or do you open it up, meeting start time, they get to be able to say what they need to say, and then you can close that portion off? Or at that point in time, you could leave it running. We're not going to go to you because we're not going to allow you the opportunity to talk, but we'd still have that opportunity. So if you're a local resident or not, if you don't have public TV. If you're not paying Spectrum to have TV, you don't have public access. So it's one more avenue for people to be able to watch meetings. You know, PCT has their PCTV Select, so that you could, you know, watch a meeting virtually if you want to, if you didn't have cable. They've Facebook Live at times. So it's one more opportunity for people to be able to connect. You know, and you and I've had the conversation off air. I'm not the social media technology guy, and I own it and I admit it. And you know, so when you say, you know, if you look back over the last 18 months, what are you proudest of? As much as I'm not a technology geek, I was able to continue doing my job, and I was able to continue making sure the city council meetings happened, and we produced results. We had budgets. We had, you know, we've solved some issues. We're working on things. We were able to provide assistance to businesses that we're looking to do. Look what we did with Milltown Capital in Bosque, and you know, being able to change the infrastructure there. Look at, you know, the new housing developments popping up on Tyler Street. So I mean, government still continue to move, and you know, would I love to say that it was pretty and neat and ran perfect at all times? Love to be able to say that. And if I did, you could call me a liar, because I know that you watched some of them. We stumbled, but we made it happen. And you know, when you elected me to office, that's what you wanted me to do.
Okay. Well, that was, you answered my next question, because I was going to ask you if there was any certain issues or things that you would say during this last term were your biggest accomplishments. And I know your role being the council president is a lot different than everyone else's. So, well, then that being said, what would you say to your constituents on why they should reelect you? And if you could, how the best way for them to be able to contact you?
Sure. So I would ask the voters to reelect me, because I think Pittsfield is at a really critical place in time. We know that the ARPA funds are coming in. We're going to make some great decisions to be able to move Pittsfield forward. And I firmly believe that we need leadership and experience to take us through the next couple of years. And I think that my track record shows that I have that leadership and experience to be able to make that happen. As far as contacting me, myself, 413-212-2163. I do have a Facebook page personally, and I do have a reelect Facebook page, and I do have a counselor page. I'm not as good at the social media component as some of my opponents are, but if someone sends me a private message, I generally will get back to them. If they tag me in a post, I'm not the best to like jump into that barrel. And
Yep, you've always been very responsive with me. That's normally 100% of the time actually how I've reached out to you. So I do know that you, within 10 minutes to an hour, you usually get back to me. So all right, well, hey, Peter, I definitely, again, appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'd love to have you back one more time before Election Day. There's some other issues I'd like to discuss, but because it's been a while and now we're getting close. So I just wanted to get you back on for this one and get the voters informed. But yeah, if you'd come back, I'd love to have you back before Election Day.
Let's talk and we'll set up a date.
Sounds great. Well, thank you again, Peter, and have a great night. And I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Thanks.